said, I'm calling this meeting to order. Let's have a roll call, please.
Mr. Vidauri? He's on the phone with Commissioner Duenas.
Very well. I'm ready for the roll call.
Here we go.
Chairman Erasmo Villarreal.
Present.
Vice Chair Jose Tellez.
Present.
Jorge Dominguez. Commissioner Jorge Dominguez.
Present.
Commissioner Rafael Duenas. He'll be connecting shortly. Commissioner Abraham Lugo.
Present.
Commissioner Johnny Narvaez.
Present.
Commissioner Raul Ugalde. Commissioner Raul Ugalde.
I think he sent me a text that he was going to be tied up at work, that he may not be able to make the meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Larry Dovalina. And Commissioner Carlos Flores. Mr. Chairman, you do have quorum.
All right, thank you. We do need a motion to excuse Commissioner Ugalde. He did ask to be excused because he was working. Can I have a motion to that effect? I don't know if anybody else called in, Ralph, other than with the other commissioners, Flores and Mr. Dovalina, that they contacted me.
We'll alert you if we have additional commissioners join.
I'll make a motion to excuse the three commissioners, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that advice.
Second from Narvaez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item that we have is the consideration of the approval of the minutes of the meeting of October the 15th, 2020. Does anybody want to make a motion? Have you all read the meeting, the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second that advice.
Second advice. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The next item that we have is citizens' comment. Herbie, do we have citizens' comments?
Well, sir, as you know, we have a lag. So if we can give it about a minute, and during that time, if I can remind everybody, if you're not speaking, to mute your mic, I'll try to do the same. And Commissioner Villarreal, I know you typically don't do that, but for some reason today, your mic is giving quite a lot of feedback.
Really?
So even if you can't hear it, it makes it difficult when others speak, even if your mic's on. So I don't mean to be rude, but I may mute you just to help preserve audio quality. If I see you're speaking, I'll try to make it as easy as possible. And with that said, we also had Commissioner Ugalde just join us for the record.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Commissioner Ugalde. Well, Commissioner Villarreal, when you're ready, you'll need to unmute your mic. And we have not received any calls from the public.
All right, let's move on. Then we have item number 5, review and consideration of the following master plan. 5A is review and reconsideration of Lomas del Sur master plan. The intent is commercial and residential. The purpose of this revision is to further subdivide phase 16A and phase 16B. All right, who's going to make this presentation?
Mr. Humphrey?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Rafael Vidauri, we did receive some correspondence just a moment ago from the applicant requesting that this item be tabled time certain.
Okay.
Mr. Vidauri, did we also receive notification from that applicant on other items?
Yes, we did. We did receive a request to table time certain as well as items 6A and 6B in the agenda.
Very good. Can I have a motion to that effect? Table item 5A, 6A, and 6B?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second, Dueñas.
Second, Dueñas. Those who are not in favor of tabling the item signify by saying aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item. Preliminary consideration of R&W Ranch Subdivision Phase 4 plat. The intent is residential. Yes, sir?
Mr. Velarde?
Brief overview, the applicant, Laredo Amanecer Homes Limited. The engineer of record is Sherfy Engineering. 4.32 acres located west of Ejido and south of Catiana Drive. The zoning is R1A. The proposed use is residential, and the proposed number of lots is 32. General location, aerial view, street view, and the proposed plat. Comments from planning and water utilities, traffic safety, parks and recreation, and utility coordination, and the proposed motion.
Commissioner Villarreal, you are muted.
I said, is the engineer of record on the phone?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Estrada is on the line.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Frank Estrada with Sherfy Engineering, and we concur with staff comments.
Very good then. What are the wishes of the commission? Or does anybody in the commission have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary consideration of RECONSIDERATION Ranch Subdivision, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Dominguez.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Lugo, second.
Second from Commissioner Lugo. Those who are not in favor of approving this signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. Next item, preliminary consideration of the replat of Lot 35, Block 1, Cuatro Vientos Subdivision, Phase 5, and 15.196 acre tract out of Watson Tract into Vista del Sur Subdivision. That is residential. All right.
Overview, the applicant, HKF Development LLC. The engineer of record is Forest Engineering. Approximately 16.5 acres located west of Ejido and north of Pitamangana. The zoning is R1A. The proposed use is residential, and the proposed number of lots is 32. General location, aerial view, street view, and the proposed plat. Comments from planning, water and utilities, parks and recreation and utility coordination, and the proposed motion.
Very good. Do we have the engineer on record on the line?
Again, Mr. Chairman, Graciela Briones for the record. Yes, we do have Mr. Nance on the line.
Mr. Chairman, this is Wayne. We agree with all the staff comments, and we're ready to move forward with this one. We hope you guys agree.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Wayne. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for the engineer of record or the staff? With no questions or any comments heard, I need a motion.
Diaz, make a motion to approve subject to the comments by staff.
We have
Second, Dueñas.
and Dueñas seconds. All those who are not in favor of approving this signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is item 7, consideration of the following final plats and the final replats. 7A, consideration of the plat of Shenandoah Valley Subdivision Phase 3. The intent is residential.
Rafa, if you're speaking, you're muted.
The engineer, the overview, the applicant is Robert Rodriguez. The engineer of record is Gilpin Engineering. 6.02 acres located south of Shiloh Drive and north of Country Club Drive and west of Kirby Drive. Zoning is R-1. Proposed use is residential. The proposed number of lots is 23. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat, and the proposed motion.
Let me ask a question. Who's the engineer of record there? I'm sorry.
It is Gilpin Engineering.
Is he on the line?
Ms. Briones?
No, not at this moment. Let me try to contact him.
Well, let me just ask this question then. Ralph or whoever worked on this plat, what is the entrance to this particular, what is it, 23 lots or 32? How much was it, 23 lots? Where is the entrance? What is the main entrance into this particular area?
Yeah, the main entrance will be through Plantation Drive East at this time, and then right now, they've already gotten approval for phase 4, which is to the north, and then they'll be connecting to Shiloh.
Okay, so there'll be a straight connection to Shiloh eventually.
Yeah, that is right. Right now, the phase 4, which is to the north, has already gotten preliminary approval and should be coming in the near future for final.
Okay, that was my question, because I was thinking they would have to go through I think the only way in would have been coming off of, what is it, Snowfalls, that is right east of that sewer plant, and then looping in, right?
Correct. So they will have direct access to Shiloh, sir.
Okay, all right. So if the engineer of record is not on there, go ahead, I'm sorry, finish up. I guess you're done with your presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody in the commission have any questions for the staff?
I had the same question, Mr. Sherman. It's just that I wanted to know if we have some type of confirmation that they have access to that particular, or approval to that particular entrance into China.
They would not be receiving final approval if they didn't have access. That's one of the requirements for development for a plat.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then, does anybody else have any questions?
Just one for the record. Yes, the property owner called in, just wondering if you all had any questions for him. I'm not sure if.
I think the questions were answered, Juan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we answered the questions pretty much. Is anybody ready to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Up to approve? We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Dominguez seconds. All those who are not in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye. Motion carries. The next item that we have then is the final consideration of the replat of Lot 3, Block 5 Riverside Subdivision into Lot 3A and Lot 3B. Block 5 Riverside Subdivision. 10 is multifamily.
Approve, Ugalde.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear that.
Sorry, that was the motion to approve, Ugalde?
Yes, you made the motion to approve, right?
Day is second.
All right, we have a second by Tejas. All those in favor, all those who are not in favor of the motion to approve, signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Next item, item 8A, reconsideration of the following final plats and final replat. A is final reconsideration of the replat of Lot 7A and Block 10, Unitech Industrial Center Phase 8 and 19.985 acres Werner Enterprise Tract into Lot 7A, Block 10, Unitech Industrial Center Phase 8. And 10 is industrial.
Overview, the applicant is Werner Enterprise Incorporated. The engineer of record is Crane Engineering, 30.33 acres located south of Carriers and east of Fort Drive. The zoning is M2. Proposed use is industrial, and the proposed number of lots is 1. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat, and the proposed motion for final consideration.
All right. Is the engineer of record on?
I don't believe so. Do you have a question for the engineer?
No, I was just wondering if he was on record on that. If not, what are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve Ugalde.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Vice.
We have a second by Narvaez. Those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion carries. The next item that we have is item number 9. Discussion with possible action on the recommendation of the adoption of the Laredo and Webb County Active Transportation Plan as an appendix to the city's comprehensive plan. All right, Kirby?
Yes, sir. Commissioners, I want to apologize for the audio tonight. I don't know why, but there have been some difficulties with it. And feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to chime in, and we'll stop and have a discussion. We already presented on the main points of the plan before. We sent you a draft, a link to the draft plan that you had time to review. We're going to cover a few different parts of it today, some of the comments you had last time. We'll get into that a little bit more. We'll take as much time on this as you like, but we're planning for 15 minutes of presentation and then however long you want to discuss this. So the first thing I want to do is just go over this point about, can we build our way out of congestion? In 1940, the city of Laredo had just under 40,000 people. By 1980, in that 40-year period, we basically doubled our population to a little over doubled it to 91,000, 92,000. During that time, traffic increased in the city at a proportionate amount. From 1980 to the year 2020, the population is estimated to be about 275,000. That's, instead of doubling, we tripled this time. And can anyone guess during that time what happened with traffic in the city? What do you think, Commissioner Narvaez?
Is that a rhetorical question?
Commissioner Narvaez?
Quadrupled.
Good. I like where you're going with that. I don't have actual numbers here with traffic. I could have put them here, but just we work with them a lot. And the idea is yes. Now, why would you guess, Commissioner Narvaez, that before 1980, traffic increased proportionally with population, but after 1980, traffic started to increase exponentially compared to the population? Why would you think that?
Free trade.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, is the the amount of goods and services that happen by vehicle. Any other thoughts? Anybody else? Or Commissioner Weiss?
We didn't build any new roads other than Loop 20.
Well, we actually built quite a bit of road infrastructure.
Commissioner Lugo, I would say because we didn't adopt a MPO.
I like that idea, but I'd have to weigh in here with the.
This is Ugalde. That's also because the availability of cars was the financing of cars was made easier after the 1980s, with lower rates and easily accessible to vehicles, and they started coming out with also more compact cars after the 1990s.
You're hitting.
Also added to the.
You're hitting on it, and that is that driving habits changed. If y'all can remember, growing up, even. Well, for those of you that are older than 1980, but, it was typical that one family owned one car. But now, the data for Laredo shows that over 2 cars per family is the average, but we all know many people who own more than 2 cars per family. There's a lot more car ownership. There's a lot more driving. We drive a lot more than we used to. Now, before in 1940, the typical that you'd see in terms of road infrastructure in the city was 2 lanes. You know, a great example of that is look at our downtown Laredo. You see enough capacity there, you see enough road built for 2 lanes of traffic. Now, in the 1980s, we started to see a lot of 4-lane roads built. You know, a good example of that is McPherson, a lot of which was constructed during that time period. I'm sure Commissioner Villarreal can tell us all about stories then, and all the 4-lane roads we saw, that was standard. Well, you know, since then we've seen 6-lane roads come into the city. So we're not only adding more of all the other smaller roads, but we're also adding bigger and bigger roads. But the question is, can we keep up with the population? Can we keep up with the traffic? And the answer is no, we can't, because adding road infrastructure is something that at best happens linearly, but population is growing greater than linearly, and traffic has been growing exponentially. And anecdotally, if you look at the experience, the technical experience of those bigger cities who have grown faster than us and tried to keep up with a lot of money and a lot of effort, even they can't keep up with it. This is the I-10 Katy Freeway in Houston. It's 26 lanes, and yet this ranks among the top 5 most congested roadways in the state. The point I'm trying to make is that we cannot build our way out of congestion. And I'm not the only one saying this. In a Republican state, a Republican governor who's very much pro-development has said, the bottom line is this: the way people get around, the way people live is going to change. As a result, this generation of roads that we're in charge of building is probably the last major build out of roads we'll have in the state of Texas, even considering the fact that Texas is the fastest growing state in America. The future of transportation lies in alternatives to traditional motor vehicle travel. Now, I want to underscore that by saying it doesn't mean we're all going to be going around on scooters and bicycles and holding hands and singing songs. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we can't fix the congestion problem with more lanes, bigger roads, more roads. We won't be able to fix the congestion problem. We have to realize that that is the reality going forward. The best option we have is to give people more options of how to get around from A to B. That's it. We're not forcing people to change the way they get around. We're just giving them more options so they can choose what they want to do. With that, one last slide for me, and then I want to turn it over to our great staff who've been working on this to highlight a few areas that they're excited to talk about, a little different than what we talked about last time. But I'm going to bring you back to this idea that's in the plan: double, connect, multiply. It's one of the big recommendations from the plan, and that is that in the next 10 years, this is a 20 to build out plan, 20 years to build out, but we really focus on those 10 years. And in those next 10 years, we're only asking that the city double the amount of bicycle lanes in the city. And some may think that sounds like a lot, but it's really not, because we've only got 35 miles of bicycle lane. We're only saying 70 in the next 10 years. That's 4 miles a year, basically. However, we are saying, but only add more bicycle infrastructure where it connects to existing. Because the problem is, like we showed you last time, we've got all these bits and pieces here, but none of it's connected. So the longest ride you can go on is 4 miles. But if we add 35, 40 more miles in the next 10 years, but we only add it where there's already existing infrastructure, then we're going to multiply by 16 the longest ride you can take in the city. We're going to go from 4 miles of connected bikeways to 70 miles of connected bikeways. Now, again, you may think 70, that's not that much. Well, the city's 20 miles north and south, 10 miles east and west. With 70 miles of connected infrastructure, you'd be able to ride your bike north and south, east and west, all across the city. And again, we don't want to force you to do that. What we want to do is give you the option to get around by bicycle. And one thing Jason will point out later is that people are already doing this, but they're taking some risk because we don't have the infrastructure there. So first, let me turn it over to Juan to highlight some interesting things, and Jason to highlight some interesting things. And by the way, if you have any comments, questions along the way, please unmute and share. Juan?
Great, thank you. So yes, there's lots of benefits, for active transportation. Of course, we're also looking for how to provide this for people that currently need it, that currently use it to get to work, et cetera. But providing active transportation options such as walking and bicycling can benefit local economies in a variety of ways. One of those ways is, through property values. It can increase the property value, and by doing so, also increase the tax base. Studies have found that being near or adjacent to a bikeway can be attractive to many home buyers and tenants. If you see this picture on your top right, that's a Katy Trail in the Uptown neighborhood of Dallas. Since that trail opened, it's a 3.5-mile trail. Since it opened in Uptown Dallas, property values have climbed nearly 80%, and it climbed up to $3.4 billion. There's also been a study done in Bexar County, where San Antonio is located, and it was published in the Journal of Real Estate Finance and Economics, found that homes near or abutting trails saw a 2% house price premium. So that means homes around trails or greenways and house prices were usually 2% more. There's also tourism opportunities. This creates new opportunities for tourism. This active transportation is not just for people that want to get around to get to work or to replace their vehicle for short trips, but also for people that are using it recreationally. So
Juan?
Yes?
On that point, I remember Dan McGee telling us something. Dan, you're still here. Maybe you could just make a quick comment. You told me that when you go on vacation to the places you like to go, there's something you do that you don't do as much here, but you do there. And what was that?
Well, the number one thing is I walk, and the number two thing is I take a lot of mass transit. In cities that have it, it's a joy to take. I prefer to do that than drive around my own car.
Yeah, because it's stressful. You go somewhere new and you look for stress-less activities, and walking and riding are those. So just wanted to interject.
And that's a great point, because I was going to mention that when we go to San Antonio or Austin, we like going to nice places where you can walk, go to a restaurant and go shopping at a retail store afterwards, and walking without having to find parking, right, and have that difficulty. So there's a lot of opportunities. It's been said that bike-friendly cities and towns are finding that bicycle facilities boost the tourism economy and encourage extended stays and return visits. There's lots of bicycle-related events, that can be done. For example, in Wichita Falls, Texas, each summer, they have an event that's called the Hotter in Hell 100. So this event is 100 miles in 100-degree heat to celebrate their 100 years. And this brings in over 10,000 registrants. So just think about what that can do here in Laredo if we had an event like that. It's kind of like a niche. Maybe we can do something where it's always hot here in the summer, and there's people that actually want to do that. They want to ride in this heat as a challenge.
Thank
so
you,
that we can bring in people.
I'm glad you brought up that tourist event and not the one in Portland where they ride through the streets nude.
No, yeah, I didn't find that one, so glad I did it.
Yeah, that's Oregon for you.
So also, TxDOT did a study. TxDOT's trying to do more tourism also for bicyclists. So they're looking at how to connect trails throughout the state so people can bicycle across the state. But they're looking at existing studies on the daily expenditures of bicycle tourists. And the results from 11 studies revealed that bicycle tourists on average spend $136 per day. And that can range from a low of $78 to $275 per day in the cities they visit. So as we're mentioning right now, as Mr. McGee mentioned, when you go out of town, you like going to places that have transit, walking to different places to a park. So that's something that, there's a lot of people that come to Laredo. We have truck drivers that come to Laredo. We have shoppers from Mexico that are coming here. And we have other people, that visit here for work. I mean, I have some anecdotal stories I can tell you of a lot of people I've met that, are just visiting Laredo for work, but sometimes they don't know what to do or where to go. So if you provide these options, even if it's just for recreational purposes, they might want to come back. They want to visit again. They'll want to bring their families. For example, the shoppers from Mexico, they can come here to Laredo, they do their shopping, maybe go to San Antonio and come back. But a lot of people go to McAllen as well. A lot of people from Monterrey go to McAllen. I believe the expenditure in Hidalgo County are actually higher than Webb County from shoppers in Mexico. So how do we attract them to come here versus McAllen? Well, we can provide more options for them to want to stay here and come here and extend their stay. It also has quality of life benefits, and this will be the last point for the economic benefits, but it's been found that active transportation systems foster economic health by creating dynamic, connected communities with a high quality of life that catalyzes small business development, and it encourages corporate investment that attracts a talented, highly educated workforce. And that's important because if we want to bring new businesses to Laredo, with talented workers, we need to provide these options, because a lot of the millennials and even some Generation X members, they like living near where they work, and they like to, commute to work by bicycle. I think Kirby's a great example of that, right? He lives near our office and he walks to work. Jason as well, these are younger people. Currently I don't, but if I had that option, I would definitely like it. If I could afford it down here, that's an option that I would like. So there's a lot of this. It's a way to really attract talent to Laredo, really good talent. Right now, I know we're looking for planners, and it's a little bit more difficult to find people from out of town to move to Laredo. This might be, an added benefit, even if they just come for a few years, but, I'll attract them to come here, and that way they have different options. So you might be asking what we're planning with all this. So we actually have a 10-year project network. We have a full proposed build-out network that's going to span 20 years. But right now I'm just going to focus on the 10-year network. So what we're proposing in the first 10 years is 29 projects of on-street and off-street bike lanes. And this would equal about 35 to 40 connected miles to reach that goal of having at least 70 connected miles in the city within 10 years. As you see on the right, it's a picture in San Antonio where it's a protected bike lane, and they installed these little humps here that are called armadillos. Installing these armadillos is an inexpensive method to protect these bike lanes. To come up with a cost estimate for the 10-year network, we looked at a study by TxDOT on the cost of on-street and off-street bicycle facilities, and we applied those cost estimates in today's dollars to the proposed mileage that we have. We found for the first 29 projects and within the 10 years, we're looking at a low estimate of 15.9 million and a high estimate of 19.2 million. But it's important to note that we already have about 7.7 million in potential savings through other sources of funds. There's 7 projects that are currently either they've gone out for bid or they've been programmed in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan or Transportation Improvement Program. One example is that Santa Maria bike lane that's already went out for bids, and that's, I think, believed being funded by the city. Then we have another project, which is in Los Presidentes. The RMA has proposed that, and so there's already funding available from there. TxDOT also has some projects in line. And then, like I mentioned, there's other projects that have already been programmed in our Transportation Improvement Program. And there's some projects to extend some of the existing trails. I believe Environmental Services has secured some funding for that as well. So we're looking at potentially 7.7 million in savings already, of money that's already been allocated or programmed to start establishing some of these projects. So how might we finance the other projects that haven't been programmed? So we have different strategies, that we've proposed in this plan. An important part of this is that, these projects be integrated into capital improvement planning. That's important. We have to be strategic about this. Also, when there's, it's important for people that are involved in the capital improvement planning process to be aware of this active transportation plan. So that's key. So if you're doing a capital improvement, say for a sidewalk somewhere, but the ATP also costs, the active transportation plan also costs for a bike lane there, well, let's make sure we package that and get it programmed. There's also an array of grants that are available. There's state grants, federal grants, and that's one of the most commonly used sources of funds for these type of projects. Something else that other cities are considering and are starting to do is dedicate their sales tax. I know right now in San Antonio, they're looking to dedicate at least a quarter cent, their sales tax for these type of projects. So that's something we can consider doing, not a new sales tax rate, just a reallocation of existing funds. I believe right now Metro gets about a fourth towards in revenues for their from sales tax. So it's just a way that we could look at it, look at our current revenues from sales tax. I know right now with everything going on, not might be the most feasible, but it's something to consider for the future. We can also leverage existing funds and other grants. Environmental Services, has some grants for trails. The health department receives grants also for these type of projects because of the health component of it, so we can partner with them, and Parks and Rec as well. Many cities, I know in Houston, they've done public-private partnerships. There's private sector funding that is provided to help fund these projects. And something that we're considering too is naming rights. Maybe there's somebody on the commission that wants their bike lane named after them, or or a local business wants the bike named after them, we can sell those naming rights.
Now, Juan,
That's
this isn't a conclusive list. This is just some of the highlights of our analysis and report from the study. But just imagine it, the Raul Ugalde Bikeway. Doesn't that just roll off your ears?
Does.
Yeah, sure. We could have a naked festival, right? Or I mean,
Now, all you got to do is contribute $1 million, Raul, and we'll get it built. We'll get it built.
So the overall point here is that, this is feasible, but we need a multitude of funding strategies to achieve this.
Thank you, Juan.
Sorry, I was muted. So I just want to dive y'all into a little bit of the network design, but before that, it was just showing the existing conditions and what that was. So understanding our local dynamics was key to providing access and opportunity for the community. We reviewed the key indicators and demand. And so you can see some of those key indicators like socioeconomic, as we all know, we deal with poverty, diabetes, lack of access to resources like internet, and as well as transportation and infrastructure. But we also looked at the demand. There's a quote that I spoke to another MPO, and they said, you can't measure the demand of a bridge through the number of people swimming across a river. And that's true. How are you able to find a baseline if we're not measuring for it right now? And the assumption is that people aren't riding. And so we wanted to dive a little bit further into, instead of just going off of what's the common knowledge, we wanted to see what the data said. So data-driven decisions. So here, this is some of the maps we produced just on the demand side. On our bicycle boardings on the left map, you can see I have the top 5 listed out, and the top, Santa Maria is the #1 route for bicycle boardings. So people are riding to the transit station.
Yeah, can you explain what a bicycle boarding is?
Yes, so when you arrive at a bus stop, there's the option to put your bike on there. So you'll be able to unload the rack, place your bike on there, and instead of just being counted as a bus boarding, you're counted as a bicycle boarding. So bicycles on the bus to extend your route.
So how is that an indicator of demand for bicycling?
So if those numbers weren't tracked, people would assume that people weren't using the bikes. And so accounting people that are placing their bike on the bus is a clear indicator of who's out there and where they're riding to, using the routes, or at least an estimate of where they're riding to or from. And then on the map on the right, is just the bus boarding. So we wanted to get a real view of what the demand on our system is. The people are out there already using the system. The bus boardings are clear indicators of pedestrians, and then the bicycle boardings are clear indicators of bicycles on our network. This network design, I wanted to include that it shows the street connectivity. It's street connectivity measured out on the most access. And so if you see the downtown area of Laredo and Nuevo Laredo, the grid system provides you the most connectivity based on nodes and intersections. And that's, you can see that on a walk score. So cities will do walk score studies. The higher the walk score, the more desirable a neighborhood is. So you can see we have the backbone, the foundation laid out in our town. Because of economic changes, the industry moved and left us with the downtown we have at the moment, but we still have the backbone for it. And then just on the survey we produced, I pulled some of the data, and the average, or the mean and the median distances were between 4.6 miles for the median and 6.1 miles for somebody's average commute to work or to school. And that fell within the 10 to 13 minute range. So we don't have long distances to drive, and we're not dealing with tremendous traffic. Why we deal with the wait times in traffic is because of the higher dependency on automobile-centric traffic, one person per car traveling to similar destinations. And again, one thing, go ahead.
Jason, I'm curious, of any commissioners, do any of you commissioners ride your bike? Have you ever ridden your bicycle or walked to work? And then the second question would be, if you had a safe route, is the length distance, would you be able to ride some time of the year to your work if you had a safe route?
Kirby, the answer is no. And if I ride a bike, it's for pleasure, and it's usually at the park, that San Isidro Park. But then you got mixed in with bicycle and runner, so that's also dangerous to mix in bicycle and runners and walkers in one trail. And if I had a choice, if I had all those choices, I would still choose to drive my car to work.
Do any commissioners live less than 5 miles from their work? Any commissioners live less than 10 miles from their work? Anyway, it's a good thing to point out, Jason, and I think that is that of those people, and we surveyed about 2,000, that the average is about 5 miles for those from how far they live from work. That's not an insurmountable distance for part of the year for them to be able to ride, be able to get to work.
I have a few more of the survey just results I wanted to share with you all on this connectivity map. We asked the people, if you never ride, why not? And so some of the most common answers were, I don't have a bicycle and I don't know how to ride one, as well as I never ride because it's dangerous and hot. And the last one was because I never learned how to. And so this shows a lot of opportunity of why people aren't riding, as well as, the potential to provide some educational resources with this plan. The one about weather, people say, is it too hot? Or we asked, is it too hot in the summer? Although most people agree that it is too hot during the summer to ride, the data identifies that El Metro sees higher amount of bicycle boardings during the summer months. Therefore, people are still riding, but selecting to board a bus for probably cooler conditions. And then the last part is most people agree that it's not too cold during the winter to ride a bicycle, therefore leaving us 75% of the year for favorable conditions. Again, what we're saying is providing people the option to use a bicycle or get out into their green space. And if they need it so, they could use that facility to get to work. We're not saying everybody's going to use it to get to work, but we're providing people the option and the opportunity to get out there into their green space and explore their city. And so when we took into all the public engagement, all the information, the data, the biggest things were safety and connectivity. People feared being out there either on the trails or on the road because they weren't well lit or they were going to be interfering with traffic, as well as connectivity. They wanted to get somewhere. They don't want to drive to a park to have to ride and then drive back home. They want to be able to ride to a park and arrive to maybe a destination and then get back. But mainly it was for recreation, but there are people that needed it for, utilitarian work. And so some of the, priority, and we were looking at was that, Laredo has a diverse spectrum of riders and transit users, from our heavily, engaged distance bike riders to our mountain trail like Laredo Lightning, and as well as people that use transit because they need to, they have their only mode of getting around town is through bus or their own wheelchair. So we're trying to provide a transportation network that strengthens what we currently have, but also provides new opportunities to the community and not just focus on roads.
So with that, commissioners, I'll just review the adoption steps and then I'll leave it for questions and comments. But we've reviewed this in workshops with the MPO Technical Committee, with you, the Planning Commission, with the City Council. We were not able to, with their agenda items went a little long. And so it's TBD when we're going to bring it to them for adoption, but soon, very soon. And we've reviewed this with the Technical Committee of the MPO, and we all still plan to bring it to the Policy Committee and the County Commission as well for adoption or adoption of a resolution of support. So we're bringing it to all the elected officials, all the leaders, the MPO and the city and the county, because this really is a regional effort if we're going to achieve this. And before I turn it over for comments and questions, and also we would ask for a positive recommendation to council for the adoption of this plan as an appendix to the comprehensive plan. But I just want to say that this was a real team effort with the community, with the stakeholders, with so many different groups out there and so many different individuals who support, with the school districts, with Bike Laredo, which is soon to be our active transportation committee. This represents a plan of thousands of people, 2,000 people in the survey, but thousands of people we engaged between the survey and going out and having the planning nights. And then you look at the previous plans that were done on this, over 20 plans that were done in the city over the years, in the 1970s to today, again, represents thousands and thousands of people's input on this. This didn't come out of nowhere. This has slowly been evolving to a concrete plan that we're bringing you today. But I want to say on top of all of it, since I got here, my plan, what I told the city council was, please give me some funding. Let's not keep spending hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars over the years to consultants. Let's develop that expertise in the city. Let's get staff in who can work on these plans. And so we're not just doing reactive planning, which isn't planning. We can actually do planning for the future. And that's exactly, they took a chance, they gave me funding. And Jason and Juan are direct results of that, of being able to bring them in and have long-range planners who are working on these plans. This is just the beginning. So I just want to say that your support in that philosophy, that idea that we don't spend our money bringing in consultants from out of the city, out of the state, but we spend that money developing expertise internally, that I'll need your support to continue to do that so that we can, these issues that you have about transportation and land use in the city, we want to be able to study them for you. We want to bring you good plans. And I believe firmly, strongly, the best plans that we do are plans that we do ourselves. Anyway, with that, questions, comments on the plan, and when you're ready, a recommendation to adopt, to ask the city council to adopt this plan?
Kirby, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think the idea of long-range planning is an excellent idea. I mean, I've always been for long-range planning, and I'm glad you're doing it because it's something that we didn't have in the past. That's very, very proactive to know where we're going into the future. The idea of obviously trying to figure out a different alternative mode of transportation to alleviate congestion is excellent. The survey, though, of 2,000 people, was that survey conducted at random, or how was that survey conducted? I'm just curious.
It was conducted both with paper and online, and most of our participants participated online. We got it out through social media. We pushed it out through the water, through the utility bills. We pushed it out through the school districts, talking to their teachers and students. We had meetings around town. We promoted all the planning nights. We did a lot of different things to try to reach as many people as we could. And that's one of the biggest surveys the city's ever done, if not the biggest survey the city's ever done in terms of number of participants. 2,000
is a number that you said. That is the correct number, right? Or did I miss?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, because 2,000 people out of 275,000 are less than 1% of the population. So the other question that I have for you now in the survey is, I guess, was there an average age group or a range of participants in those 2,000 surveys that kind of, give us some indicators too as to who are the potential users of this other form of transportation?
Yes, we did. We definitely asked some demographic questions in the beginning of the survey, like how old are you? How much money does your household make? So that we could kind of sparse it out and say, okay, what do these type of people think? And one of the really fascinating things with the survey was that because we asked questions like that, for instance, questions about age, questions about do you ride or don't ride, we were able to ask the question we highlighted before, which was, okay, do you think we should have bike lanes in the city? Is that important? Can we require those on when we build roads? The majority of people said yes, but you're right. Maybe it was just people that ride already saying yes. But of the people that didn't ride, we were able to isolate them. And of the people that didn't ride, that never ride a bike in the city, 80% of them still said, yeah, we should have bike lanes there, and that they would use it if they felt safer. So we asked all those questions. We've got a sample. As you know, with statistics, you don't need to get 50% in order to get a good sampling. You just need to make sure you have a good cross section of the population. And we did. We reached all age groups from young to old. We reached all demographics in terms of wealth. Those that are poor, those that are medium income, those that are wealthy. We reached all those demographics, male and female. We tried to get a good cross section so that we weren't just asking people that agree with us. We want to ask all of the Laredoans, and we feel like that survey really does represent a cross-section of Laredoans.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
On that filtered question Kirby asked about if I never ride, when we asked the public that and we filtered those answers out, some of these responses that the people that don't ride and they recommended having those buffered bike lanes or the protected bike lanes, they said, it looks safer. Separating modes of traffic is safer. And then the third one gives them specific space and it is more safe. So even people that don't ride and they see the option of a protected bike lane, they would prefer that because it separates the cyclists from the traffic and therefore they feel safer when driving around them.
That's a good point. Even people that don't ride want bicyclists to be safer because in their car, they don't want to have an accident with a bicyclist.
Of course. Let me ask you another question. You know, the idea that you guys are proposing over the next 10 years, I mean, it's excellent. Your first year, and I'm sure you guys already thought this out, what or how much, you said you were looking at estimated between 3.5 to 4 miles a year. Normally when you do projects, you do a cost-benefit ratio on these things. Have you done a cost-benefit ratio on the use of the funds?
Well, you bring up a good point, and that is if we don't find new sources of funding, that these funds obviously will be coming from somewhere else. And have we done a specific cost-benefit analysis? Not specifically in that sense. We have in that we're talking about the returns that you get on this investment, quality of life, the impact to real estate, the impact to tourism, you know, the economic development factors are definitely there to say that this is something that we should be putting emphasis on. This is a good expenditure of funds. But we're not saying that this only will come from existing. We are looking at new sources of funding, but we're also trying to make the case that this is a worthy expenditure of, in this case, limited funds. So we do appreciate that. That is a good point.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for your answers. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions or comments for the planners?
I have a question and some comments. This is Uganda.
Yes.
Hey, Kirby. I think it's a good plan. I think it's a good footprint, a good foundation. I think the question that the chairman was asking about cost benefit, I think that should be more quantity based. I think quality based. I think that once you, because this plan is sections, right? In sections, you're not going to do the whole city all at once. I mean, that's impossible. So I think as you implement some of these ideas and these plans, then you can get into the real details of it. But I think nothing like that can move forward without the basic foundation. Is the amendment to the appendix to the comprehensive plan needs to move forward first.
You bring up a great point, and we agree. What you're referring to is the capital improvement plan, and we do need to be more specific on, and we will. This is just the beginning, and then from there, these projects will get more detailed as we recommend.
I think, yeah, and all the economical benefits, those are all hypotheses that can be easily be disputed. So I think we need to, when you do those isolated studies and those individual implementation of the projects, I think you need to come up with some really hard numbers. A lot of the comments that I heard from Juan and the benefits of it economically can be easily be argued against.
Mm-hmm.
So just as you get into the details of it, make sure you have some concrete evidence and not just the examples of other cities, but more into what our market is. And I think with that, you should have a win.
Yeah, I agree with Raul on that.
Thank you. That's good feedback.
Good plan. Good job, guys.
Anybody else? Any other commissioners or anybody else have any comments?
Yo, Rafael Dueñas.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Irving, Jason, he escuchado varios puntos desde que inició este tema. ¿Por qué hay muchos coches? Porque hay mucha gente. 1940, 1980, 2020. Hoy por hoy tenemos 8 high school en el pueblo. Cada high school tiene un promedio de 1,000 muchachos que gradúan cada año. Estamos sacando jóvenes del high school entre 7,000 y 8,000 cada año. Y todos son potenciales para obtener un auto. Todos son potenciales para comprarse un auto, manejarlo y subirlo al tráfico. Luego entonces probablemente tendríamos un promedio de 8,000 autos cada año más en el pueblo circulando o mucho más. Hicieron ustedes una encuesta de 2,000 personas. Yo les rogaría o les propondría que hicieran la encuesta en todas las high school con los jóvenes de 16 a 18 años para ver quién está dispuesto a irse a su escuela en bicicleta. ¿Quién de ellos está dispuesto a irse a su escuela en bicicleta? Y le diría al gobierno del transporte de Texas que no dé permisos a los 16 años para conducir, que se los dé hasta los 21, así ya no tenemos más tráfico. Otro punto, donde yo trabajo no llega ni siquiera el bus. Donde yo trabajo allá en las minas, no llega el bus. Mis empleados no pueden irse en bus a trabajar para bajar el tráfico, tienen que usar su coche. Laredo no es un friendly de bicicletas, no es una ciudad amigable para las bicicletas. Pero también los invito a hacer un experimento. Vamos a promover la semana en donde todos los empleados de Planning and Zoning vayan en bicicleta a su trabajo. Todos los empleados que les veo mucho entusiasmo para apoyando las bicicletas, vayan en bicicleta a su trabajo de aquí a fin de año. Y luego todos los empleados de la ciudad. Y luego ya lo abrimos a todo el público. Y después me dicen cómo nos fue, si verdaderamente el 100% de los empleados aceptó la invitación de transportarse en bicicleta y no necesitamos una empresa gastar dinero, que ya gastamos mucho y la ciudad carece de dinero, que nos venga a decir que Laredo no está listo para andar en bicicletas. Hagan todas estas encuestas, hagan un proyecto piloto, porque de lo contrario yo no estoy convencido de que tengamos que hacer tantas redes de bicicletas para que no se usen y nos quiten carriles para circular. Lejos de solucionar, van a generar un problema de tráfico más grande. En el sur no tenemos ni banquetas, señores, ni banquetas tenemos. Entonces, si le quitamos más espacio a las calles, más problema de tráfico vamos a tener. No estamos listos para esto, ni ahorita, ni en mucho tiempo no lo vamos a estar. Insisto, vamos a comprometernos a andar en bicicleta 1 o 2 semanas y luego me dicen cómo nos fue. ¿Cuántos empleados de la ciudad aceptaron transportarse en bicicleta? ¿Cuántos estudiantes del high school, del Laredo College, de los 2 campus y de TAMIU aceptaron a trabajar en bicicleta? Gracias. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Dueñas, you have some great ideas. And guess what? A lot of those are already in the plan. We want to do Bike to Work Day. That's something that we're already planning for. And we're very excited about here, not only with the city, but also across the city. Many cities do a Bike to Work Day, and it's something we want to do. One thing I want to highlight about what you said, and that is that we have not proposed anywhere in this plan to remove vehicle lanes. Let me say that again. Nowhere in this plan are we proposing to remove vehicle lanes. A lot of our streets have enough width where we could add a bike lane and not remove a vehicle lane. We don't want to decrease the amount of, we don't want to make it harder for cars to get around. We just want to provide an option for those on bicycles or pedestrians to get around safer. So we understand the concern, and I know it's a concern many have, and we don't want to sacrifice vehicle lanes. And so I hope that answers your question there. But I take your comment as support, and I'm very grateful for your thoughts. And if you have more of them, send them our way. But we definitely want to we definitely want to do a Bike to Work program, and maybe you can help us with that. Get involved in that.
Kiri, I like to plan more details. Me gustaría ver tu plan más detallado y viendo cómo vas a iniciar. Thank you.
Well, we sent a link out to all the commissioners, so you should have gotten a copy of the plan. I'll just send it again right now so you can see it again. I'll send it right now.
Y bueno, vamos a agregar un comentario, Mr. Dueñas. El bus uso número 17 en la ruta es la cual va a las minas y es la segunda más alta usada de toda la ciudad que usa bicicletas. El año pasado llegaron 1,500. Y es cierto, no todos van a llegar al distrito industrial en bicicleta, pero muchos de los empleados...
Y la gente no la usa. Y la gente no usa el bus para ir a sus trabajos.
Bueno, no, no tantas, ¿verdad? Pero el uso se necesita por, lo sabe, el 30% de pobreza que tenemos, los ingresos no hay suficientes para que todos sean dueños de los carros. Y los 8,000 estudiantes que estudian y gradúan, no todos van a tener el dinero para comprar un carro. Además, los papás también. So, es nomás dar una opción y no quitarle al transporte, nomás agregarle a las opciones. Los miles de troqueros que llegan al año, darles una opción para andar en los green spaces y caminar, los fines que están aquí. So, nomás es una adición, no quitar.
Mira, de recreación tenemos los parques. Haz la encuesta en los estudiantes si esos 8,000 que no pueden comprar coche van a usar bicicleta para que se vayan a la escuela en bicicleta. Al fin tú dices que no tienen dinero, que vayan a la escuela en bicicleta. O sea que es una encuesta de 2,000 gentes y a lo mejor 1,000 usan bicicleta ya. Saca la encuesta en todas las escuelas y la gente que puede ir a su escuela en bicicleta, de sophomore a seniors. Y lo vemos, lo revisamos. Ahorita no estoy convencido que el Laredo esté listo para bicicletas. Gracias.
Hey, Kirby, this is Commissioner Liu. I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know earlier on, I know you were kind of asking us how many commissioners live, you know, like 5 miles from work or 10 miles, or how many of us had a profession that we could utilize a bike or something like that. I was just wondering, in asking that, is that something that was also part of the study, like making a study of what jobs actually exist that are tied into something like this? Because like I didn't answer, not, you know, because in my profession, it doesn't tie into this program. Not that I'm not interested in it, but you know, in my duties, you know, we patrol. I'm not, if I was assigned to a bike patrol, you know, that'd probably tie into it. But those that, you know, have professions that are, you know, you're stuck at you know, you live wherever you live, but then you're stuck at the bridge, or you know, the professions have a lot to do with it. And I think that's something, I don't know if that was part of the study, but I think that's something that well, I'm asking, was that included into that study or not?
Yes, we definitely consider those who active transportation is a component of their work, and also those that, you know, can't, maybe because they're, like you said, you have to drive around for a lot of what you do. But, you know, one of the big things that we pulled out from this survey and from the plan is that in Laredo, a big part of active transportation is not necessarily getting around A to B. It's about recreation and health. So even if that was the only reason, that's still a very, very valid and important reason for us to build this infrastructure and make sure it's there. It's not necessarily because we want to get people to go grocery shopping on foot or on a bicycle or want them to ride to work, although we get excited about that as planners. Equally, and also very much here in Laredo, it's about exercise. You come home from work, what do you want to do? You want to sit in front of the TV? You know, do you want to go drive somewhere? No, you might also want to do those things, but some days, but you also want to go for a walk at Slaughter Park, or you want to go for a bike ride in North Central Park, or you want to do something active. And we want to make sure we provide those resources. So what we're recommending in the plan is only partly on the road. The other part, and a big part of it, is using our waterways, using our off-system trails, you know, extending the trails, connecting the trails, giving people more opportunities to recreate and to exercise. So those are very important. So you make a great point, and yes, it's definitely part of the study.
Yeah, and of course, no, and I definitely understand that, you know, that health is a big issue, and if it was just an issue of health, that in itself, considering, you know, the things that are the number one health issues in our country, that alone should merit this program in itself. We need to address that as a community, especially here in Laredo, where, you know, I don't have the medical numbers, but definitely, unfortunately, our community does have health issues that we could do a better part, and
well, those numbers would
help.
Those numbers are in the plan. So if you want to see those numbers, look in the plan because we put them in there. The rates of obesity, the rates of heart disease, they're disproportionate on Laredo. Yeah, we've learned during this pandemic that those that are most vulnerable.
That's because of the barbacoa tacos.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Great point. Great point, Commissioner Lugo. Great points. And they were considered and they're part of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirby.
Kirby, and looking at the presentation, obviously the cost of this over the next 10 years, you were estimating 15 million to 19 million, which really translates to about 215,000 a mile, which is not a big cost. And I think if you're looking at a 4-mile stretch every year, you're looking at $800,000 to maybe $1 million. But I think we do need to look at alternatives. Obviously, this is one alternative to try to reduce, ridership on existing roads. However, as long-range planners, you also need to look at other alternatives on, a lot of people here already, due to the heat or whatever you want to call it, are going to drive to work because it's just a more feasible thing to do. Therefore, having said that, I think what we also need to do is we need to look at.
Can I guess where you're going? Because we're doing it. I want to guess what you're going to say.
All right, go ahead.
There's some exciting things in the future of transportation happening with car shares and automated cars and automated car lanes. And there's some really exciting things happening. We're on the cusp of that. And those are definitely issues we're looking at the regional and also the local level where we can implement infrastructure changes that will make those kind of technology changes more accessible here in Laredo. Was that where you were going?
That is partly where I'm going. I'm really going to this. I think we need to look at it. Let's say our Northwest connectors right now. You've got Interstate 35, then you've got McPherson, which is another one of your major connectors, Springfield to some extent, but mostly McPherson Road. And I think we need to look at McPherson Road and, the mobility factor of a roadway is only as effective as the number of stops that you make on a road. Right now at McPherson, you've got traffic lights, I don't know, every probably 1,500 linear feet. If there is a way to study this, I would like y'all to look. Let's figure out a way to make some great separations at these intersections within the existing lanes. I'm not talking about buying additional right away. I'm talking about let's take a look at, right now you've got 4 lanes of traffic going one way and going both ways. But if you can look at those intersections and figure out a mechanism where we can just do a great separation, maybe channeling it down to 1 lane over that particular intersection so that the mobility of traffic can keep flowing without stopping until you get, say, let's say 59 all the way to Loop 20, the very north. And, if we can accomplish something like that, adding, less stops, therefore mobility flows a lot faster and you have more capacity on those roadways than you do right now. Something I would definitely explore. A lot of people will tell you, well, we can't build great separations. We got to go out and get additional right-of-way. But you can't. You can build them within existing right-of-ways. It's just a matter of being engineered. But I would ask you to explore that too. We have to explore all avenues, given that we have constraints in going north and south right now. And there's not a lot of solutions to it that we can afford. It's just cost prohibitive to try to buy additional right-of-way to do the right thing. But let's see if we can work within the existing right-of-ways. You've seen that in many other states and other cities where you work within the existing right-of-way and you can get great separations going. In some cases, they've got a freeway and and it's sitting on the same footprint. I think we need to look at those things too. I love the long-range planning. I've always been the person who loves making sure that we've got something going into the future that we can all say, hey, we're thinking about how we're going to do this. And obviously the bicycle situation is one. It's got several components that I think are very critical to this area, obviously health being one of them. But it is an option, like you said. The generations that we're looking at, the younger generations are more health conscious. They're more adapt to maybe if they're closer to work, take a bike to work in the future. And I think we need to continue along those paths. I don't think the expenditure they're proposed under this plan is a big expenditure on a yearly basis to the budget. I think it's a minimal expenditure. I think your council members get more money to spend on their own projects in their own council districts. So I think it's a very good thing for us to go ahead and keep looking at it. But by the same token, your long-range planners need to look at all alternatives also. That's my comment.
Thank you. Yes, sir. And we definitely, the direction along the way was, let's be conservative. We'd rather be conservative in our projections and what we want to accomplish and realistic than to be pie in the sky and it doesn't get achieved. So we really think it's possible. And we're going to be, this is just the beginning. We're not going to make this plan and abandon it. There'll be much more to come.
Tell you what we do now, I am going to ask the commission for a recommendation on this particular plan. So can I have a motion for approval or whatever the commission thinks?
I'll make a motion for a positive recommendation to go to city council. This is what
okay. We have a motion.
Second advice.
Who seconded Narvaez? Narvaez. Okay. So we do have a motion and a second. All those who are not in favor of the positive recommendation on this particular plan signify by saying aye. None heard. Positive recommendation is scored. All right. Thank you very much. The next one, item 8B, discussion with possible action regarding planning commission meeting schedule.
Yes, commissioners, Rafa, you can just look at the calendar so you can give me the exact dates. But the first planning commission in January of 2021 falls in such a way that it puts the deadlines not only on the engineers who are submitting, but also on staff. It makes it very difficult for us, for those that wish to spend the holidays with their family instead of at the office. Although if we do end up here at the office, well, don't worry, we'll have a lot of fun. But if we give enough advance warning to the engineers, then it's not going to slow anything down. Engineers will either submit, they'll submit before, and it won't significantly impact the process of review and development. So what we're asking is that we Rafa, what's the date? The first one in January?
The date is January the 7th, Thursday, January the 7th.
So we're asking for Thursday, January 7th, to not have the Thursday, January 7th. Is that the only one we're asking?
Yes.
It's just that one, right?
Okay, so you're asking us then to just have whatever was going to be held on the 7th, on the 21st? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, or before or after, but we just don't have we don't have a January 7th planning commission.
That's what I'm saying. We eliminate the 7th meeting and we just put it on the next meeting in January.
That'd be correct, yes.
Yes, okay. All right, I have no problem with that. Does anybody have any problem with that? With no comments heard, Kirby, I guess the commission agrees with you. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. We'll send a special notice out to all the developers, Rafa, out to all the engineers to make sure they're well aware of that. And we'll do anything we can up until then to, make sure we expedite everything else so that nobody's missing anything on that date.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Then the next thing we have is comments.
Yes, I just want to say thank you again to all of you for your service. And I also want to say thanks to the staff. A lot of hard work went into the plan. And also I don't know if you're aware, but we've had a couple of retirements. Fernando and Ale both retired in the last couple months. And so that's put an extra burden on our staff, but we have planning positions open. So if you know anybody who would love to be a planner, please send them our way. The links are up on the city's website and we're looking for good candidates. And we're very excited about the team we're building here. And I just want to say thanks again to the Planning Commission for your service. You don't get paid for what you do. It really does make a difference. And we appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you very much. With that heard, motion to adjourn?
Is motion to adjourn.
Second, Ugalde.
And a second, all those in favor, obviously yes. Thank you all very much.